What up, Salty Crew? Welcome back to another video. I'm so happy that you're here. Today, I am going to be doing a casual meal prep video. This is usually how my days of meal prepping go, and I'll just take you through the process that I go through and the order of which I cook things and prepare things and just the flow of everything, and just to give you an idea of how I operate when I meal prep. And I want to do more videos like this just so you guys can see that meal prep doesn't have to take forever as long as you multitask and do multiple things at the same time. You can make meal prep go by really quickly. So in this video, you're going to see the order of which I do things and so on and so forth. And I think it'll just give you a better understanding of my philosophy on meal prepping and how to make it easier for you. And before we get started, make sure that you follow me on Instagram at More Salt Please. Your girl is trying to get to 10K so I can get the swipe up feature, and I'm getting so close. So pause this video right now, go follow me, and come back to it. Now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the video. The first thing I do before I begin meal prepping is I take a look at my fridge. And I do this because it helps me figure out what ingredients I actually have so I don't overbuy, and it shows me what produce I need to use up quickly. And it also reminds me the food that's already been prepped that I need to use up, so I can either use it up right away or I can recycle some of the ingredients that have already been prepped into a new thing that I'm going to prep. So once I do that, it's time to start cooking. So I have this block of tofu that I'm going to press, and I don't have a tofu press, so I just put it in between 2 plates and paper towels, and then I put something heavy on top. I usually use my cast iron skillet. I usually let my tofu press for about 30 to 40 minutes. So while that's going, I am going to steam some zucchini for smoothies. Now, I know this sounds weird, but it's a great way to add body and texture to your smoothies without adding a ton of other frozen fruits like banana and mango that will really hike up the sugar content. I try to keep my sugar consumption pretty low, so if you're looking to lower the amount of sugar that you're eating or the amount of carbs that you're eating, definitely try out steaming and freezing zucchini and putting it in your smoothie because it's pretty great. And it helps you eat more vegetables, which is always a win-win. So while the zucchini is cooking, I'm gonna make some meatballs with these Beyond patties and a few of the hot Italian Beyond sausage links. And this is an old recipe that I used to love making, and originally it has ground turkey in it, so I wanted to try making it with Beyond meat and see how it would turn out. So you're just going to mash all the meat together until it's nice and minced, and then add in a few cloves of garlic, about half of an onion, some kale. And in the middle of making my meatballs, I checked on the zucchini and it was actually ready to go. So once it's cooked, you can just put it on a flat surface and let it cool and completely dry off before you freeze it. Okay, back to the meatballs. I'm adding in some dried basil here, dried thyme, some freshly cracked pepper, a few pinches of salt, and then I'm gonna add in 2 flax eggs. This will keep the meatballs together and it'll be a nice binding agent. Flax eggs are literally just ground flaxseed and water, and you let them sit for about 5 minutes and it turns into a flax egg. It's pretty great. And then I'm gonna add in about 3/4 cups of quinoa. I actually already had this prepped from before, from a few days ago. And then I'm gonna add in some gluten-free panko breadcrumbs and about 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast, and mix that all together until it's really well combined. And then I am going to form them into meatballs. Once I formed all my meatballs, I put them in the fridge for about 30 minutes just so they can set, and while I cook them, they can hold their shape a little bit better. So before I can continue cooking, I'm gonna take a break and wash the dishes that are by the sink, because I don't know about you, but I just cannot cook in a dirty kitchen. I can't do it. So I'm just gonna take a 15-20 minute break and wash these dishes and get the kitchen clean before I get it dirty again. Makes a lot of sense, right? Now it's time to make the meatballs, so I add in a little bit of oil to a nonstick pan, get it hot, and then add my balls. And I sear them on about 3-4 sides. I just try to get the whole thing as crispy as possible on the outside. Make sure that you don't overcook them or get them too brown, but you just want them to be nice and crispy. So by now the zucchini is cooled and dry, so I'm gonna layer it in the freezer. And I like to freeze each individual piece of zucchini so that it doesn't lump and stick together in whatever container that I put it in the freezer. Doing this step is really important if you don't want everything to stick together. And once my meatballs are cooled, I add them to a Tupperware container. And now it's time to make the tofu. So I'm just gonna roast this in the oven and get it nice and crispy. So I'm gonna cut it into strips and then cut it into cubes. And spread it on a parchment paper lined baking sheet. And I have the oven set at 425, and I'm just gonna let it roast for about 15-20 minutes until it's golden brown. And while that's going, I'm gonna cut up 2 large heads of cauliflower. So once they're cut, I add them to a colander and then I run it under cold water to get any dirt or grit off of them. And by this time the tofu is done, so I'm gonna take it out of the oven and it should be nice and crispy and golden brown. So now that the oven is free, I'm gonna roast some stuff in there. So I'm gonna peel this sweet potato, slice it up, and put it in the oven, along with some cauliflower florets. And before I put the cauliflower in there, I'm gonna season it with a little bit of avocado oil, some salt, cumin, smoked paprika, chili powder, and I mix it all together until every little piece is nicely coated. And then I roast it for about 20-25 minutes. And with the remaining cauliflower, I'm going to make some cauliflower rice. So I just add it to a food processor and pulse it until it's the size of grains of rice. And then I'm gonna add some oil to a pan and saute it. So this batch of cauliflower rice will be sushi rice. So I'm gonna add in some dairy-free Kite Hill cream cheese and some coconut aminos. And this little mixture will help the rice get sticky, so it'll be great and perfect for sushi. And you can also add in some sesame oil. I also season with a little bit of salt too. And then I transfer it to a Tupperware container. And the other half of the cauliflower rice, I'm just going to season with different spices. So I have salt, some turmeric, pepper, and now I have 2 different types of cauliflower rice. Next up, I'm gonna make some chocolate chip banana bread that was so good. I found it on a blog. I will leave the blog and the recipe down below so you can make it yourself. It's not vegan or gluten-free, but I made it vegan and gluten-free by using a flax egg in place of regular eggs, and I used a gluten-free flour mix in place of regular flour. Next time, I definitely plan on making it with oat flour instead of the gluten-free mix. Oat flour just makes things really fluffy and moist and just better, I think. This was a little bit like chalky. I wouldn't recommend using rice flour, and I'm pretty sure that's what the gluten-free flour mix had in it. So word to the wise, use oat flour. So while that's in the oven, I'm gonna make some almond milk. I make this every few days. I'm addicted. It's so much better than store-bought. So I'm just gonna add in my soaked almonds, vanilla extract, cinnamon. I blend that together with some filtered water and strain it through a nut milk bag. You can also add dates in here too if you want to make it sweet. Then I'm going to transfer the milk into these glass containers from IKEA. I love them. They come in handy for so many different things. The last thing I'm prepping today is this soup that is just everything in the fridge that I had. So we got onions, carrots, celery. I'm going to saute that and then add a little bit of water, along with a few cloves of garlic, the rest of the cauliflower, so much freaking cauliflower. I'm gonna add a little bit more water and then cover it and let that steam for a couple minutes. And then I'm gonna add in a couple tablespoons of tomato paste, cumin, chili powder, smoked paprika, a few pinches of salt, stir everything together. And then I'm gonna add in black beans and chickpeas, a little bit of tomato sauce, and canned corn. And then I'm going to cut the heat and add in some kale as well. So that's everything I meal prepped for the week. It took about 3-ish hours. And I love meal prepping this way because it's individual ingredients that I batch cook as opposed to individually packaging all these different meals, and I'm set to those meals only. So this allows more freedom and creativity. I kind of love it. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching this video. I really hope you liked it and it gave you a better insight on how I meal prep and just the process of it all. And like I mentioned in my last video, I am coming out with a meal prep ebook full of plant-based recipes, tips and tricks, and just how to make meal prep easier and not so soul-sucking. And if you have certain things that you would love to see in the ebook, I wanna know. So tell me down in the comments which type of things, what you're looking for in an ebook like this that talks about meal prepping. It's kind of like a meal prepping beginner's guide. Anyway, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Take care of yourself, eat good food, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Diet Coke ain't good for the soul. Give me that orange soda. Give me a grape like you see in the movies. Bubble to the top like a smoothie, you'll see. I'll do you like a 9 to 5.